Hello, and thank you for joining me. I'm back with another video. This is What I've Been Thinking with Marcus Cage, and I'm your host, Marcus Cage. In this video, I wanted to talk about things which I would like to hear Bernie speak about, especially right now. I feel that the race has kind of changed up a little bit, and this is kind of, what we used to say basketball days. This is kind of a do or die type moment. You have to do this. So I figure that I would go through some points, elaborate on different topics more as we go through it. But I just want to hit on certain things which I would like to see Bernie speak about them. No guarantees that anything that I say will actually, get out there, but at least if I can get some of these point of views out there, some of you guys might think about these things also and might start to push these messages around to other people, and maybe hopefully it'll open their eyes, even if Bernie will never say some of these things. Without further ado, those of you who are new to my channel, if you enjoy the content, please subscribe. Please click the like button. Please hit the bell, and please tap the like button if you enjoyed it. And please comment. I do try to comment and respond as much as possible. Without further ado, hope you guys enjoy this, and any feedback that you think I should have added into thoughts on Bernie's speech and his approach that he should do, especially coming up, that we're going to have another debate soon. So these are things which I want to try to get out there, maybe get others to start speaking about. Maybe it could bubble up to, Bernie's level. You never know. So we'll get on to the video. Hope you enjoy. Thank you. Hello, and thank you for joining me. In this video, this is my Bernie speech video, so we'll jump straight in. I feel one of the things which Bernie needs to do, and I know it's tough for him to do, is to attack Biden a little harder. Now, I found a way which I felt that Bernie could probably attack Biden without feeling like he's really taking a knife to a friend. I guess that approach, which I would say is, he needs to bring up the fact that in this time of pandemic and emergency and crisis, he's been out there. He's out there speaking, and Biden is nowhere to be found. He needs to bring attention to that are we sure that Biden is the better choice when Biden is not responding even right now during a pandemic and crisis? So do we want to wait until he's in office and hope that he's going to start doing something? I feel like he should be attacking him on that. Also, he should attack the fact of just leadership in general and judgment. He brought it up in his last debate, but I feel he really needs to double down on this sentiment. Why would you choose a guy who has been constantly wrong on issue after issue after issue? And I've been right on issue after issue after issue. Now, do we want to just choose somebody who we think looks like they have leadership? Or do we want to choose a person who made the right decisions when it needed to be made, when it was the unpopular decision? Joe Biden consistently went with whatever everybody else around had the consensus of doing in DC without actually doing any nuance and looking at the issues in a more human and compassionate way. That's a little bit of how I would go after him there. I also feel at that same time, he needs to be drawing more separation from Biden and Obama, because that's one of the biggest things that I feel that is keeping Biden afloat. If he was able to, like, for instance, what I would say is You know, if we look at the record of Biden and Obama, that's great. Oh, Biden and Obama accomplished many things. But if you take that 8 years away from Joe Biden's career, what does his career look like at that point? Because what I'm trying to propose is it's fine and dandy how Joe Biden was while he was with Obama. The difference is Obama won't be with him to make those decisions. It will be Joe Biden making those decisions, not Obama sitting there to hold his hand. That's one way I feel that it needs to be addressed, that what Obama did doesn't automatically give Biden a pass, and it shouldn't, because he's not going to be in the White House with Obama. So for those of you who are giving him this, well, Obama and Biden, it's not the same thing. One man was making a decision, one man was following. In this decision, by putting him as the nominee, he will be making decisions, and others will have to follow. And throughout his history, he has shown that he consistently makes bad decisions. And so this is a man who you want to be our leader, the man who consistently makes bad decisions. I'm sure there's other ways which they can drill down on that, but those are some of the things where I felt he should be hitting him. He focuses a lot on policy, and that's good for people who are policy wonks and follow policy, but most people don't follow policy. When you're fighting in a debate, it's not always about the person who's correct or who was correct on the facts. Many times it's about control. It's about other things. It's about how the audience perceived, the exchange of things. And some of the tenor, which I feel Bernie needs to do, is Bernie needs to start hitting him in certain areas where he hasn't typically even looked to attack him at. He needs to attack his strengths more. Just like I was saying before, in this pandemic, he needs to push down on what's going on with Joe Biden and this pandemic, and where is he at? Why is he not responding? What is his plan? I have a plan. What is his plan? What is he going to tell you besides, we need to bond together and listen to the scientists and get everybody in a room? Okay, you already said that. Now it's time to actually give us some specifics. What are you going to do, Joseph Biden? That's what he needs to do. He needs to start drawing him down to a point where he has to get beyond whatever he has scribbled on his notepad that he's reading off, and actually have to start getting outside of that comfort zone and answer questions off the top of his head. If you guys didn't watch the debate like I did, he literally was just reading as if he knew the questions, which it shouldn't surprise you because Hillary did this before, and Hillary has her fingerprints all over this stuff all again. Another thing which he can bring up is he could give credit to Andrew Yang at this point. I feel that would be a nice nod tip to Andrew Yang, and it might endear a little bit of love from some of the Yang supporters who weren't ready to just hop on over to Bernie. They might be a little bit more interested now that he's proposing a UBI, though it's not the same as Andrew Yang's freedom dividend. It is still UBI, and so some of those people might be on board for that. But it's the strong possibility, if he doesn't really bring up the fact of Yang's name, the person who's kind of become famous for UBI, I don't think that he will reach a lot of those people who might be Yang voters who have checked out of the system. I feel he needs to double down on himself, that he was right. While everybody sat there and screamed about, how are we going to pay for this? How are we going to pay for that? How are we going to pay for this? What we're finding is this pandemic is showing all the cracks and holes in our system. And it's showing that, you know what? If we had a universal healthcare system, everybody could actually go and get checked out. People wouldn't have to go to work and say, you know what, I think I might have it, but I don't think I can afford my copay to go to the hospital, so I'm not going to go and get checked. You wouldn't have those kind of issues. that you wouldn't have these people who are so worried about, okay, well, I might have it, but I can't afford to get checked. It's going to be a lot of that going on. And as long as the system is set up the way it is, you're going to have some people who are getting checked and tested, some people who are not. And as you try to quarantine off different areas and shut down and lockdowns, you're still going to be spreading it around, and they're still going to keep getting around because we don't have a way to properly test everybody. Another thing is, especially in this time period, it shows even more that we need a universal healthcare system, because with everybody losing their job, they're also losing their healthcare at the same time. This is one of the problems which a lot of people like myself and people on the left have complained about our current healthcare system. You can have the greatest insurance ever, but if you lose your job, your insurance is gone. Another thing is, most of us don't actually even seriously know how good our insurance is or isn't, because we don't really use it. If you might come down with, say, a back injury is not extremely expensive unless you have to have surgeries and things like that. If you don't have surgery, a lot of times it might not be very expensive. You might go in there for, a fracture, something small, a broken finger or something like that. That might not cost you a whole lot. So you might not feel like, it's not that bad. But let it be something which is more serious. Let it be a cancer, an aneurysm, a tumor, things like that. And you start having to stay in the hospital multiple days or weeks or months, when you start having to have very, very expensive pharmaceuticals, which cost you hundreds and thousands of dollars. These things may not happen to you or may not happen to I, but they are happening to plenty of people around us. And if that's, say, your mother or your brother or your son or whoever, a lot of times you're going to come out of your pocket to help them, in turn pulling you down also, in a sense. I mean, it's not the best way to phrase it, I guess, but it is what it is. By having this system, you don't have to worry about 26-year-olds being on their parents' insurance. You don't have to worry about sitting there and going through an hour to 2 hour to 3 hour to 4 hour seminar every year with your job explaining all the trips and all the tripwires throughout the new changes within the medical system. Another thing is what you see in these countries. They're able, every other country besides us, they're able to streamline and get the testing out there because it is federal. They're able to just pull it, send it out there, start testing. We're struggling to do testing, and it's going to be worse here for us. Though we're looking at places like Italy, and we're like, they had a universal system. They don't have enough beds for people. Well, no country has enough beds for the people. No country has a whole set of hospitals just set aside for when you have a pandemic and majority of your population is automatically sick and needs to be quarantined. Nobody does. But if you have a system that can pick up some of the people who are not working, who can catch the people who are fired, who can catch the people who may be working 2 jobs but can't afford insurance. If it covers those people, then those people are able to be tested and checked also. It doesn't matter how great your insurance system is. If you're perfectly fine and healthy, and then I come to work and I get you sick, with a universal system, you're able to test and check everybody, even the people who can't afford to go to a hospital. And that, in turn, leaves us all safer. It's also cheaper. If you look at it, we literally have the most expensive healthcare system in the world. But what happens? It's still rated one of the worst. Now, everybody who says we can't afford Medicare for all, I don't think we can afford what we're doing right now. But this is what everybody wants to stick with. I mean, sorry, I got a little bit, got a little bit long-winded on that one, but that's some of the things which I feel Bernie needs to bring up. He needs to bring up the fact of, by having that universal health care, if employers are, if employers have to, that's what I'm going to say. If employers did not have to pay for health care, if they didn't have to pay it, and those of you who haven't run a business or are not familiar with how a lot of that works with payroll and employees, that's one of the most expensive parts, the healthcare part. If you're able to exclude that out, corporations are able to pay better. You're able to have better salaries. If you follow trade and you follow, trade, especially back through the early decades, not early decades, but early, like, say, I want to 70s, like 70s to 80s, 90s. If you look at those time periods with the trade that was going on between the United States, Canada, China, South Korea, and I guess the Philippines and some of those different places, if you paid attention to how trade was working through those different areas, what made things different in those countries and made them go from the status that they were then up to the improved status which they are now is because of those universal healthcare systems. Their corporations were able to grow massively because they didn't have this burden of paying healthcare to all these people. Their economy was able to grow also because with paying your people more money, they have more disposable income to shop at other businesses. So that means not only does your business do well, but your neighbor next to you business does well. More customers, more shoppers, more business. It only makes sense. But in this day and age, we're still having to fight with this. I would hope that Bernie would actually call out the GOP, call out the Republicans, call out Trump. Everybody this whole, election cycle has spent all this time talking about how all the things which Bernie is producing, how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? That's untenable. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't do this. Just negative, 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 negative. Horrible. I'm like, as a kid, I sat there and watched JFK talking about sending us to the moon. He didn't even care how, but that's going to happen. But yet, in America, in 2020, we're talking about we can't do something that almost every other major nation in the world does. I mean, to me, it should be embarrassing for any person to get on TV and start talking about what America can't do since everybody else is already doing it. I mean, unless you're saying that in the time from Kennedy to now, we've become so dumb of a nation that we can't figure a way how to do things which everybody else does. If that's your explanation, I disagree with you. But that's the only thing that I can get from what you are saying, because it makes no sense that we cannot do what every other nation does. I would also bring up the fact of the media, along with trashing how he's going to pay for everything, has not said a single peep about how many trillions that the Trump administration has been dumping into the stock market that has just been just lighting it on fire, just lighting it on fire. Within this month alone, they've dumped probably close to $3 trillion. And then you ask Bernie, well, how are you going to pay for a healthcare for all plan? $5 trillion for, $5 trillion a year. Well, we just dumped like $3 trillion in a month. But you can't figure out. I mean, that's the thing. Every time it's tax cuts, we had the Trump tax cuts. We had the Bush tax cuts re-enshrined in the law. We had the first, Bush tax cuts. We had Reagan's tax cuts. We have Star Wars. We have all the different military programs. We have the no bid contracts to KBR, to Raytheon, to Halliburton, to all these different places. We have no problem dumping. Here's a couple billion here, a couple billion there, a couple billion there, a trillion here, a trillion there. We have no problem doing any of that stuff. Us average taxpayers, this is coming out of your pocket. You have no problem with us doing all that stuff. But when we're talking about forgiving your student loan debt, or maybe your brothers or your sisters or your cousins or somebody that you know, helping them out, an individual person that you know, talking about helping them out, that's when you have pause. That's when I don't know if we can afford that. But you have no problem blowing money on crap that we're never going to see and never going to benefit from. I mean, that's just, some of the food for thought that I want people to think about. We have no problem paying for all this other stuff. But when it comes to paying for something that's going to help us, we turn around and say, no, we can't help us because government is not meant to help us. And I'm like, have we lost perspective on what the point of our government is for? The government is for us to be able to have safety, protection, and have the pursuit of happiness. If you are going to a job which you are miserable, and that's all the only option that you feel you have, how is that a pursuit of happiness? If you feel like, I know I'm sick, but I can't go to the hospital because I can't afford it and I'm just stuck, how is that a pursuit of happiness? I talked to somebody not too long ago, and we're talking about the homelessness in Skid Row in LA. And I saw an article shortly after that. It said LA County had 500,000 new homeless people. And I asked them, like, well, why do we have 500,000 more homeless people? Why can't we build low-income housing? Why don't we have other kind of solutions? And they're like, well, it's the supply and demand and this and that. And I'm like, well, what's the point of having a government if they're not there to do anything for you? What is the point? And that's where I am right now, where we're letting the media frame things and ask questions, and we're not pushing back. We need to push back. Now is the time for us to stop just passively watching the news and start pushing back, start questioning things. If you're going to keep watching these people, at least start holding them to a better account for the things which they say and do. They literally let Joe Biden, I haven't seen a single mainstream outlet which has called out the fact that Joe Biden sat there and lied about the crime bill repeatedly. I mean, it's documented that he spent years working on it, that he lied about, the bankruptcy. He lied about the crime bill, bankruptcy bill. He lied about so many things that night, and for it to not been ever called out, it's frustrating. This last little tidbit, I will throw in there as a caveat that I know for a fact that Bernie is not going to do this. But this, honestly, I feel he should. This is what helped Trump win, and this is what Bernie should do, though I know he will never, ever, ever, ever do this. What Bernie needs to do is Bernie needs to call out the media also. Point blank, period. When he was sitting there and he's like, Joe, you're going to tell me that you didn't write the bill. You're going to tell me that you didn't try to cut Social Security. You're going to try to tell me that. What he should have done is she should have turned, said, Dana, Jake, are you going to sit here as the moderators and just not say anything at all? You know that he tried to cut this. Are you going to call me a liar, or is he lying? Who's lying? Say it right now on national TV. Which one of us is telling the truth? Because you guys know which one of us is telling the truth. And the fact that you guys don't want to say who's telling the truth or who's lying shows your bias. That is what Bernie needs to do. He doesn't have to call them fake news or liar or any of that. Bernie needs to call them out when they're lying by omission. That is what most of them like to do. They will say, well, Joe Biden is looking really well in the polls, but what they're not telling you is Joe Biden is doing horrible with young voters. Joe Biden is also not doing well with Latino voters. He's doing well with a couple of categories. It is suburban population. He's doing well with older population and older Black people. That's his, and wealthy people. That's his demographics, hoping to get a whole bunch of, former Republicans and all that. While flipping a nice middle finger to the progressive base. I'm just saying, it's not very much time to make the right decision. Not much time left. Guess I'll leave it there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this content. Please like, share, comment, hit the bell, do all that stuff. You guys know what to do. Until I speak to you again, guys, have a great one. Thank you.